The Sacred Wellness Alchemy Show, a space for healing, growth, and transformation, where you reclaim your power, remember who you are, and live abundantly ever after. Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the Sacred Wellness Alchemy Show. I'm your host, Giovanna. Today I have a message for the strong ones, and I was sitting and reflecting on my work and who I support in my own journey. And this is what I came up with. I looked back at my own life and the different archetypes I was walking with, the different experiences, and I realized a lot of it aligned with the archetype of the strong one. I was always the strong one, the good friend that was always there for other people, but where was everybody when I needed them? That was my story. And it took me way too long to realize I was carrying so much from other people in my own past. I was carrying other people's self-hatred, their guilt, their shame, their secrets, their heartaches, and their challenges. Because when you have people in your life that cannot reciprocate, or they're just there to take or to benefit, they push all of their stuff off onto you. They treat you a particular way because of how they feel about themselves. And that is definitely a topic I want to dive into deeper. So while I'm holding space for everybody, when it's my turn, I found that I was holding it all by myself. And this tends to be the theme in my life whenever I am going through challenges or difficult times. There's not many people outside of possibly like professionals. Now I do have like my sister best friend, but usually I walk through those things by myself. And so when I think about one of the most difficult times of my life, it is when I was dealing with domestic violence, abuse, my mental and emotional health, and everything else. Being a mom, being a single mom, going to court, dealing with child custody issues, all during a super volatile economy. It was just so much going on, and everyone around me at the time, friends and family included, were so not helpful. Like, that's the nicest way I can put that. So I was carrying the weight of all of that, all of my experiences, all of my challenges, all of the heartache, the pain, and the trauma that I went through, because there was nobody to really hold space for that with me. And at the time, I was trying to seek therapy. Back then, there were not a lot of Black therapists, and the therapist I did have, I realized it was more harmful than helpful, because at the end of the session, I would be so confused about where she was leading me, and I would have to like keep redirecting her and also like explaining what things meant. And that's when I realized this woman does not understand me, nor is she really trying to help me. Like, she was trying to crack stuff open that was not even a factor or an issue, but that's a whole nother story. So it just felt like there was no support at that time for me. And that's when I really realized like I couldn't depend on anyone else. I got really wise on like who my true friends were, what family meant, and how to recognize when professionals are not being helpful. Because had I stayed continuing to see that provider, I probably would have been way worse off than me severing that relationship and continuing to look for another provider and finding other methods of supporting myself in the meantime, which is where I started working heavily with aromatherapy, yoga, meditation, and energy healing. So I like to say there's always a silver lining in the cloud, but still, that should have never happened. Like, there should not have been a breakdown in communication or a breakdown in mental health services. And I've still experienced that a few more times, even fairly recently, which it's always such a negative impact when that happens. But let me continue on. So, like I said, I had to get really clear on what true friends were, what family meant, and the only thing that I had was the shell of my former self and the rubble of my life at my feet. Like, everything was just absolute chaos. It was a below ground zero moment. I felt like I was underneath all the rubble and all of the weight and everything. But I will say that is the experience that pushed me into the greatest version of myself at that time. Literally, with tears in my eyes, pain in my heart, and my back against the wall, I still chose not to give up. It was a long path. It was a painful, curvy, windy road, but I still kept going forward, even if I was stumbling along the way. The key thing was that I chose not to allow my circumstances to stain my heart and mind. Once I recognized that I could be in control of my mind, that was a game changer, which is where positive forward movement and like sacred visioning and leadership came from. The first thing for me was mindset, really working on my mindset, getting out of the endless rumination, those thought cycles, those negative thought cycles, allowing them to take me on a journey. And I will say that's why yoga and meditation saved my life, is because meditation taught me not to identify with the thought, but to observe it. And when I was able to make that distinction where I wasn't in the thought, I wasn't letting it drag me off down into a pit of despair, but I could sit and watch it. Then I started hearing the voice of the thought. And this may sound crazy, but like sometimes, the thought might sound like a parent's voice or a sibling's voice or a teacher's voice. And you start to realize like some of these inner critic, these negative thoughts don't even belong. Like, where did these things come from? And so you get to question that belief and that thought and like, well, where did it come from? And you realize that shit doesn't belong to me. And that in and of itself is a beautiful and transformative process. But again, for me, it started with mindset, getting out of the victim mentality and deciding that I was not going to let the people that hurt me, the systems that failed me, my own self betrayal and self harm, I would not allow those things to dictate my future. And like I said, it wasn't easy, but I had to be stronger than strong and develop the toughest skin. Like, I just felt like I had to coat myself in Teflon so that I did not let anything get to me mentally, physically, emotionally. I never allowed myself to put myself in situations where I could be seen as weak, where I would stumble, fold, or cry, especially in front of other people. I gained somewhat of a very stoic demeanor, and that served me well while I needed it, while I was still in that super protective, kind of like a wounded bird phase of my life. But I was also in pure survival mode, so that was also not healthy. I was in a space where I didn't trust anyone, isolated myself, and like just had to protect myself at all costs. And again, that's not healthy because we do need community. And it's hard at that time, especially if you've been betrayed by a lot of people or, trusted in the wrong people. Community can feel unsafe. And so that was something else I had to learn. And in doing so, what I learned is that I have to create community for myself. And so that's why I like to hold healing circles and do like intimate group work with like small groups of women, because that to me feels safe and it's nurturing and it's nourishing and it's just a beautiful experience. But what all of this taught me, like having nobody there, was to take off the cape. Y'all know what cape I'm talking about, where we feel like we are Superwoman, Captain Save 'em. I took the cape off. And it was the cape that allowed me to just rush in and save the day for ungrateful people, the one where I would answer my phone to console or entertain friends that didn't have the time of day for me, wouldn't answer the phone for me, or thought the situations that I was going through were entertainment for them. And it was the one where I would just give my last to another that wouldn't even think to give it all. And it's the cape that made my kindness and genuine love for others out to be a weakness, the one that caused friends, families, and others to expect the world of me while giving nothing in return. And I literally said, fuck that and fuck them. And honestly, that's one of my favorite meditations, especially if there is a lot of anger or hurt or pain, anything like that, or you just need a deep woosah moment. That is one of my favorite meditations. Fuck this, fuck that, fuck them, fuck it. And I would just repeat it in whatever order you want. But I'm telling you, it is so healing and therapeutic. So once I took off my cape, I began to reserve my time, my energy, my resources for me. Then I was labeled as selfish. I was told, oh, you changed, you switched up. And I'm like, you damn right I did. And I don't regret it, because staying the same would have been detrimental to me. Anything that's not growing is dying. The absence of growth is death. It's stagnation. It's not moving forward. It's being stuck. And that's not what I wanted. So I love being told, oh, you changed. Yes, yes, I did. Thank you. And if you take that as a threat or are trying to say it in a way that's an insult, that tells me a lot about you. So, like in the hardest moments of my life, and I'm talking over the span of decades, because I've been through some things, um, like dealing with child loss, healing from domestic violence, and, trying to pick up the pieces of my life in the process of healing, restoring my body, my mind, and my soul. That's where I found my purpose, my peace, and me. Capital M-E. Not the me that was covered in labels and stories and the conditioning of my past that told me who I was or that society expected me to be, but the me that was created by sacred design as a transformational healer with an abundant soul and expansive vision that deserves it all. Full stop, exclamation point, bold, underline, italics. Deserves it all. And there was once a time, and it's funny because right in manifestation, a lot of people will tell you, oh, you have to be specific. And so whenever I'm publicly speaking on what it is that I'm manifesting, I always say all that I desire and deserve. I know what desire and deserve means because like I write it out, and that's my personal like manifestation list. But I don't necessarily name it in public in that way. I just state all that I desire and deserve. And a lot of times they'll be like, oh, well, you should, say it. But I also believe in the power of silence. And in fact, I just recorded a sacred audio transmission that talked about silent wisdom, when we just observe and we're taking in, we're seeing what's happening, but not necessarily speaking on it. There are times when we do need to cocoon things and keep it close to our heart so that they can establish roots and thrive before we announce them into the world. And so I think that was just important to note. And also, I deserve it all. There was a time when I don't think I could have said that and like felt that was true for me. And so that is why that's so important. And I think you should write that down on a sticky note and let that be one of your affirmations, your mantra, a reminder, a note to self that you do deserve it all. So once I uncovered me, the expanded version of myself, the one that was created according to my sacred design, which I have a sacred design session and basically look at your cosmic DNA, your makeup, and that helps to kind of see where you are, where you should be, what things may come easier to you, and kind of just help you shift. And what's so fascinating about that is when I usually do those readings, most people aren't super far off from their cosmic makeup. They might have to do a little bit of tweaking. It's usually something that they kind of wanted to do, but maybe they didn't take it serious. But most of us are in some way in alignment with our design. And even for myself, with all the changes that I've done in business, the different certifications, the different brands, and all of these different things, all of it is in alignment. Even me um, integrating all of my gifts and skills instead of seeing them as like separate offerings and things like that, and coming up with my own methodology is within my sacred design. And so I just find that to be so fascinating and nourishing, and I love it. So, your sacred design is the woman that you were put on this earth to be. And once I discovered who and what that was for me, that has always been my anchor. It's always been my blueprint, the map, the compass, the GPS. Um, Even if I don't hit every single goal or milestone on target, I always know what it is that I'm working towards. So ultimately, when opportunities or situations arise, I can say, okay, is this taking me closer to me, or is this taking me backwards or off on a tangent or some sort of side quest? So it gives me something to ground into and just helps me to stay in alignment. And one of the things that I know to be true for myself and for you is that we were not put here to struggle in love, in life, or wealth. Period. That is not why we were created. Those struggles are, what's the best way to say that? The struggle is not real. I'm going to say it like that. But the matrix, the world that we live in, the society, the patriarchy, there's so many isms and systems and structures and things in place that teach us that struggle is the way, that glorifies struggle love, that makes it look like check by check is the only way. And some of these things are ancestral, they're generational, they're karmic, but those things can be overcome. And that is the root, the essence of the work that I do as a sacred wellness alchemist. Sacred wellness alchemy is about harmony and wholeness and liberation in body, mind, soul, and wealth. So when I look back at everything that I've overcome in my life, those challenges, the things that hurt me, the things that almost took me up out of here are what drove me to make it my mission to be there for other women so that they never have to walk in my shoes. It's what led me to become a master coach. It's what led me to continue deepening my coaching work. If I told you how many coaching certifications and various specialties that I have, you would be like, girl, how do you find the time? But I love learning. And again, I'm all about holistic. If a woman, when you come to work with me, I want to be able to address as much as you're holding and walking with. So if that leans into success, if it leans into mindset, if it leans into relationship, if it leans into finances, abundance, wealth, manifestation, I have a medicine bag that I can go into and pull out what I need specific for you. So even like with my coaching clients, that integrates intuitive guidance, it integrates energetic healing, and for some of them as well, it integrates body work as well. So there's again, always holistic, always integrative. It is an experience. If I had someone like that in my life guiding me and supporting me, then I know that my path to healing would have been much quicker and much easier. In addition to life coaching and wellness coaching and financial coaching, I have studied and practiced a number of healing modalities, a number of spiritual practices. Like I said, I have a vast medicine bag that allows me to support my clients in a very personal and customized way because that's what I like doing. I like catering to my clients. I like having premium, high touch, very curated. That makes me happy. I get to shift and change and flow and really meet you where you are to get you where you're trying to go. And I love that. I love that. I love that. So this is for all of my strong ones, the ones that are holding it down, keeping your head up, holding back the tears and still showing up with a smile. I want you to know that this is a safe space for you to unpack it all so that you can soften, heal, and come home to yourself. I'm Giovanna, your Sacred Wellness Alchemist. I'm here to help you experience emotional freedom and liberation from your past so that you can experience the fullness of who you were created to be, not who you were told you had to be, not living under the weight of what you have experienced in life, but being able to be free and actually enjoy every aspect of yourself and every aspect of your life, because I believe that we were all put here to be the fullest expressions of ourselves in all that we do, whether that's at work, whether that's at home, whether it is mothering, whether it's taking care of plants, whether it's doing hair, whatever your gift may be, you have one. And when we are in a space of true wholeness within self, that's when we're able to fully allow our light to shine, no longer dimming it, no longer self-sabotaging, no longer overgiving, overextending ourselves, burning ourselves out, shrinking, and denying ourselves the right to live abundantly ever after. So I am here to guide you. If you want to tap into your body's wisdom or get the clarity you need to heal and move forward, I would love for you to reserve an intuitive guidance session with me. You can schedule that on my website, JoannaTisdale.com/readings. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Sacred Wellness Alchemy Show. I look forward to many more sessions and conversations and episodes to support you where you need it most so that you can experience wholeness and liberation. Peace. As we close, take a moment to come back into your body, noticing your breath, and feel where you are right now. Thank you for being here with me. This is the Sacred Wellness Alchemy Show, where we heal, grow, thrive, and live abundantly ever after. Peace.